Hey everybody! Today we talk with former Secretary of Rethinking Economics NL, Rosa de Koning. We discuss the effects University College had on her approach to economic models and ideas. We talk about her year as secretary and about the connection between philosophy and economics. Hey Rosa, thank you so much for making the time to talk to me today. What have you been up to? How have you been?
I'm fine. I just moved to The Hague and I'm finishing my last thesis. And I will start working in a few weeks. And so far have been getting used to like the new lifestyle and stuff. And so it's going fine. Yeah. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. So, what is your last thesis on?
So my last thesis for it's a master in like politics, philosophy, economics, but it's more like philosophy based. So I usually say I study political philosophy. But with a bit of economics in it as well. So my thesis is about market-based solutions to pollution and basically what's wrong with it, or like what are the main points of critique. So I started with the idea because I think the EU ETS, European Emission Trading Scheme, has always been presented in economic courses as a very efficient solution, because you basically set a cap on how much pollution you want to allow, and then you can make the cap a bit lower each year. And then the efficient part is that companies are able to trade these emissions, the rights to pollute. So if you're a company for which it's easier to reduce emissions, then you can sell them because you can profit from reducing pollution. And then for company which has like higher costs of doing that, they can buy it. So instead of having like one tax, you gain the same amount of reduction, but at lower cost for the economy, which is in economics, in the courses I had there. And then more the philosophical aspect is really like how can you determine a price like that, because it's market based. So basically after like the crisis, the prices went down quite a lot, and like how like philosophically, like how can you give someone even the rights to pollute and why would you let the market determine what the price would be? And it basically goes down to also the like what is cost benefit analysis. So how do you determine costs and that. So it's still in my head. It's like a discovery, like how it goes, but it's more based on arguments on like a philosophical approach to it. So it's not an economic comparison of what is efficient, but it's more like what are potential issues with it. And I think, for example, in the EU case, they try to rebuild it a bit, and before they would just give the rights, but now they can also auction the rights, which is like a big difference. Instead of, because you polluted like this amount last year, we're going to give you the rights minus a little bit, and now it's more auction based. But so I hope
Wow.
it will come to an end. And since it's philosophy, it's not going to be a conclusion it's bad or it's good or we should do this, but I do hope it gives some more practicalities in like ways to also maybe improve it a bit, but we'll see how it goes.
Wow. So, how did you get into this mix of philosophy and economics?
So it's a while ago. I think I was at high school, and I was getting economic courses, and I liked it because it combines a bit of like mathematical knowledge, but also for someone who's more like into societal topics and history and stuff, instead of more like the hardcore physics stuff. So I like the combination, and I was getting the courses after like the economic crisis. So around me, you saw people losing jobs, and then you saw governments having policies and reducing their budgets, for example, and that really gained my interest in like what should you do as a government in times of a crisis and what comes after it. How can you, because being unemployed, if a lot of people are unemployed, that's considered something you want to maybe change, and what are the tools for it. But at the same time, I also noticed in the class that, for example, my teacher like said, okay, politicians are saying this, but according to this theory, it's a little bit difficult or like different. For example, Keynes would say, like, spend more money now instead of like cutting down. And that kind of put like an idea in my mind, like, okay, what is economics, and why would I want to study it? Do I want to like study economics to get a good job, or is there something more? Because I think economics touches on so many stuff that have an impact on your daily life and your future. So I thought maybe I could combine it with something more philosophical or psychological, and that's why I went into university college in Maastricht, so I could have some economics courses, but also I had like a course on economic psychology, and I had quite some courses on philosophy as well, on ethics, on how you should distribute stuff in society, what grounds are for that, and what are the arguments there. So that's how I got into a little bit of economics, but also a little bit of more political philosophy in the end.
Oh wow! So it's a whole mix of different ways of thinking from the get-go, right? It's not just plain economics. I mean, it sounds so mean sometimes, but it's not just economics. So I think then you started also from a different angle, looking at economics than just economic students. Do you have that when you talk to economists or economic students, that you look at things differently?
Yeah, so I think like the first thing, of course, is that not having studied only economics means you have spent a bit less time on it. So in some topics, your knowledge is not as in-depth as other students. But at the other side, what I noticed, for example, in a master course, I was in that course with also another student who did the same bachelor's as I did. And we were presented a formula, the social welfare formula. And like I noticed in that we both started to ask questions, because like we knew it, but the way it was presented, like we also were very trained in like seeing, okay, what are the normative implications maybe, or like what does it actually mean? What can it tell us, and what are the consequences of using this formula? But I noticed that the teacher himself was not super pleased on us spending a lot of time on that, because of course I can understand he also has like the things he wants to discuss in a class. So I think in the broader, like I think that's also specifically the bachelor's I did, being at a university college and also having a lot of time to discuss ideas and topics and ask questions, is maybe that's also specifically to Maastricht, but I think that's also in some other university colleges as well, because you're not trained as in depth in one subject. You're really trained to also discuss it with people from other subjects. So you get into discussions and conversations quite easily, instead of just reproducing or more being focused on one subject and just learning it. It's more, it has like an extra critical dimension.
So that's like an extra skill you learned in university college that wasn't maybe taught as much to just economic students.
Yeah, of course I cannot look into the classrooms because I was not there. But from the courses I had, for example, I had a corporate finance course once there, being given also by someone who was also involved in sustainable finance masters, who had like also some interest into that perspective. But he said like there was less time spent on just the book, and more time on like critical reflections, like looking, for example, at financial statements of companies and discussing it in the group. Because of course, like if you do the bachelor's, then of course you have time to discuss the book, because it was a very big book, and go more into like the details. And now it was more like get a general idea of what it is about and how it can be used. So I think that's also might be the difference.
Do you think that's an important skill, or are there other important skills that students or economic students should get?
Yeah, I think it's like for me, it's like essential to academic education in like any discipline. What I noticed, so in that course I just talked about with the social welfare function, that was also for me the incentive to join Rethinking, because in my bachelor's I was not as involved in that type of movement because I was having a great time. And that was the first time when I really started to feel that there was not enough time to discuss this, which I thought was not super great. So I wanted to look for a place in which I could discuss these ideas with fellow students outside the classroom.
So, but then how did you join Rethinking? How did you get into Rethinking Economics NL?
Yeah, so when I left my Maastricht bubble, which was they all already had a Rethinking similar organization there, which I was not involved with. But then after the course, I discussed with my friend like, oh, why is there no room to discuss these topics? And that's why I think I've heard somehow sometime about it, but I cannot remember when. So I just sent them a message, and I then had a meeting with Mark, which is a few years ago. I think 2 years. I don't know. I think 2 years. Yeah, which was 1.5 years, which was super interesting, and that's how I got involved with it. Yeah.
Cool. So what have you been up to with Rethinking?
So currently I'm preparing a talk for a conference at the end of this month, which will take place in like real life, as nothing changed in the meantime. So in which we were asked to give a workshop there, which is a conference this time about sustainability, and they have super cool workshops, and we've been asked to give one. And these are the very cool things Rethinking does, because basically I think for the youngest people there, but because we're part of Rethinking, you get offers these opportunities which otherwise would have not presented for me. So I'm really looking forward to that. Some other projects going on, but I have to say like it's been a bit chaotic lately. So we're doing a research into the demands, like the wishes also from from employers, and how they basically, what is their look on economics curricula. So we trying to get interviews going for that. Yeah, so that's
cool.
it. Yeah.
Okay.
And it's all online now, so not really haven't seen anyone in a while from Rethinking, but I think on Zoom we quite a lot of contacts.
I mean, that's good. It's really weird for me too. Like I joined when Corona started, so I have never met anybody in real life.
Yeah.
So do you have any Rethinking stories you want to share?
Let's see. Like I think what was like for me personally, and I think also for us as Rethinking, because we got quite some offers to give talks. For example, at the end of this month was a talk I gave at the KNAW, the Dutch Royal Academy, the Royal Dutch Academy of Academics. I think that's correctly the English translation, which was also a bit random for me. We just got invited to give the talk there, and it was also for me like a way to see that Rethinking also fits into a larger debate, and that we got taken seriously, which is it's super cool, because normally you're just around students and then you try to do stuff, and sometimes things work and sometimes they don't, and to actually see that people outside of it, there are quite some like older people there, also are interested in this, and yeah, it was super great, and it was just nice to be in touch and hear like positive voices after that. So that's like, if I look back at the past like academic year, that for me personally it was like such a surprise. Yeah.
Cool. So what is a Rethinking fail that you want to share? Because there are a lot of cool stories that I all want to hear about, but what is first a Rethinking fail you want to share?
I think like one time I think one time let me think. Yeah, one time I was giving a talk somewhere as well, and I was like super nervous because, and I remember like not being very comfortable on the topic before. So I tried to prepare, but at some point you also just have to like go with the flow. And at that point, I wasn't really sure how, and it was like a very new environment to be in. So I started talking, and then I think like I finished talking like 2 minutes later, or like 1.5. So it was like super short. And then so that felt like, oh my god, like I prepared it so much, and then because of nerves, like after 1 minute I had no clue what to say anymore, but it was fine. And yeah, so no, it was a failure, but like I wasn't like super happy with it in the end, and didn't really feel like I had been that much of a contribution.
So, what are some rethinking successes or some things that you're really proud of from the past few years?
I think for rethinking, just like it's not like what I did, but just in general, I think as a movement and as a organization, it's for example what I noticed in the talk, that you do get taken seriously, and it has like so much potential, which is something maybe I wished I knew and was maybe more aware of in the beginning. But it's also, for example, now with being all on Zoom, I've also been more in contact with, I think at the beginning, with also some other rethinking organizations outside the Netherlands, and it's all super great to see that somehow this has been established, and there's like people outside of the Netherlands also doing work, which is nice, and it has much potential. Yeah. Nice. So it's like very good for the people who like build it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive. You know what's also really impressive? That you became secretary. I think it was for this year, for the past year, or were you secretary for a longer time?
No, just a year. No.
How was it to be secretary?
So what I enjoyed, I think, about it was that Rethinking is also like an organization. As a board, you have a lot to say, and also to say how your role, how it would look like. So it had a lot of room for you to come up with ideas and go for it, like you're doing now with this podcast. Is like perfect example of, because like before, like quite some organizations or like student organizations have some kind of structure, which is also more is more stable in a sense, but also a bit less flexible, I think, to follow your like own ideas and wishes and things. So that's something which I really enjoyed. And also in my secretary role, like doing the talks, or like sometimes just meeting with people who email and just see what comes out of it, is something I really enjoy.
So why did you become secretary?
Well, basically I got asked, so I wasn't really thinking about it in that much. It just like, because I didn't know Rethinking that good, so I didn't know like what are standard procedures. Like I said before, it's not as like, it's not all laid down as much. It's not that there is no structure, because there definitely is a structure, but there's also flexibility, and it's also depending on wishes of people. So it's not like you have to send up your application before this and then stuff happens. It's more relaxed and just so I just thought, okay, I will go for it and see what happens. And I think in the beginning I thought I was only going to be there half a year, but I stayed a bit longer. My plans basically changed, so I stayed a bit longer. So I was happy with that as well.
So what did you take away from being secretary?
It's basically that it gives you the opportunity to be in contact with organizations, people. Just for myself, it really helped me to gain my head a bit on like what's happening, who are also doing stuff on this topic. As I said, it's just like I think any board role or just anyone who wants to do anything within rethinking, there's like the opportunity to pose ideas and then see how it goes. So for example, the SDGs project, which has been paused by me a bit, but like the idea just came up, and then you also have this group of people like academic rethinkers and also people on the senior boards who you just ask for advice, which are like qualified like professional people. Like it's also very cool that they established that at the beginning, to help you out and to see to ask for advice basically.
Cool. Okay, so what would you say to the future secretary? And do you have any advice for the future board?
I think like last year I actually got I don't know who of them said it, but just like enjoy it. And when they said it, I was like, yeah, of course. Like, but at some point you kind of feel that sometimes it's a bit too much, or if you have a lot of ideas, then sometimes there are too many ideas to actually follow through. And there's so many opportunities, but having so many opportunities also can create like stress. So in that sense, like, know the potential it has, but also know and focus on how the board as a group, like what you actually also want to do and how you want to make the year like pleasant, but like also for yourself successful. But like don't feel sometimes the pressure too much. But also I do think, like, for example, I do think they will do a great job, and it's also up to them to discover new ideas and projects and whatever they want to do. But I think, like, reflecting back, I think I could have spent maybe more time also on the group process and how you do that, and how you can maybe also learn from each other and stuff, which I think is now essentially super important because it's all online, to make sure you also still meet. And yeah. If that makes sense.
Yeah. So, okay, a little bit on another topic. What are topics close to your heart when it comes to education in economics?
Yeah, I do think what we briefly discussed in the beginning, like the critical thinking aspect, just in general, just the room to have discussions, to also have that skill to relate it to what's happening in the real world, and what you learn, how you can use it. And I think it also comes back to having, as a student, maybe and sometimes some autonomy, or like some say in your curriculum, like not that you're gonna design it yourself completely, but for me, what I could do in my bachelor was really picking the courses, which I understand doesn't make sense to do maybe in each program, but I do think it's good to have some say in your curriculum, in like the things you're reading. And I can give an example of a course I once had, I think it was at VU, in which we were also able to come up with our own papers and post them in the group. And then you really also learn how to critically look at the usefulness of a paper, which is like way different than just getting a reading list and reading it, because of course it's useful because the professor picked them out. But it's whole different stories if you're writing an essay or a thesis, then you have to do it yourself. But so having a say also, what do you think as students is now the most urgent problem or topic in a certain course or thing you're learning? And maybe for mathematics, it would not always make sense, but I think there are a lot of courses in which that could be very interesting addition, or to have some room for yourself to put in some of your interests, which I think will motivate students also more.
Cool. Okay. So, but you picked courses in economics and in philosophy and in ethics, as you I think, yeah, those were the three big ones. And maybe some psychology too. Why those? I mean, you could have picked any courses, I think, in university college. So why that mix?
Like I wanted to start, and I also ended with it, like having economics and philosophy, which like the main, like your major in that sense. But also sometimes you just pick a course because maybe you're not super sure, or like your favorite course is not given that semester, like that period, which can also which is not that like goal orientated, but just I had a course on, I don't know, globalization and inequality, which wasn't really linked at that point in my mind in anywhere, but it can always surprise you and give you a new perspective. And yeah, so you also at some point you also hear other students saying this course is super interesting. And for example, we also had a history course, and I had a politics course as well. So it's just in general to have a broad perspective. Yeah, and I had some mathematics as like science courses. Well, yeah.
Okay, cool. So why economics and philosophy? How does that work?
Well, unfortunately, in my bachelor, I had not had really a course like specifically on this, but they go well together. Like economics comes in an essence from philosophy, like way back. I think like wasn't Adam Smith also a philosopher? Like didn't he call himself? I'm not sure exactly, or was it someone else? But yeah, I think they go well together. I think it should be should be super cool to have philosophy of economics course as like a core course in economics education, for example. Because in like many other subjects, ethics automatically play a role. If you have like, I don't know, if you study medicine, you also need an ethics course to what you're doing, what are the consequences, to just get your head around it. And I think philosophy also, like philosophy of science, is like super important, I think, for economics. So like, what is it, the science? What kind of science? Like, what can you prove? What are the methods you use? So I can cool addition to that. And I've been focused also quite a lot on like public economics, and I think that also questions on what should a state do, what should we let a market sell, or like why do we say like it's not okay to sell your organs, or but you can sell, I don't know, like sex, for example. Like how it's not like a right or wrong answer, but just to think about why those choices are made, and what are the pros and cons, or like the arguments, and what are the consequences, and also to look at our economic system, which is also like how do we want it to look like, and what is welfare. Like it's those like what is growth. I think all those questions that pop up are basically philosophical questions in essence. And yeah, so I really enjoyed the link. It doesn't provide you much answers, only more questions, but yeah, it's interesting to see, and also complicated sometimes. So that also can be a challenge, and that's cool. That's also what I like.
So should everybody have an economics course or a philosophy course, according to you, or what do you think?
I think anyone should have the courses they want. Like just in general, if they don't want to study it, I also completely understand. But I think just in general, it could be a nice addition to have like a philosophy of economics, or just an ethics and economics course. I had one of those in my master's, which I enjoyed really a lot. And during that course, which was in my philosophy master's, I also was thinking, I think this course will be also super interesting to have in an economics program, because the concepts are clear for everyone. So yeah, but it's still nice to reflect and to maybe read material from others that make you think.
Cool. So how are you going to use economics and philosophy going forward? What are your plans?
Good question. I have no clue. So that's the thing. You like studying. I also hopes to like then I know what to do with it. But like studying philosophy, you kind of start to understand that it's not always the practical link that is the motivation or should be the motivation, but I think it gave me a way of thinking, and which I hope to use in the future. But I find it hard to really see now a job, or like I don't know what kind of future for it, but I do hope in the rest of my life I'll know a bit more on that.
Sounds very like floaty, like in the rest of my life, somewhere along the way. For rethinking though, do you have some more? Are you going to stay with rethinking, or do you have any projects coming up except for the one at the end of this month?
Yeah, I think they're still going. So depending on what everyone plans are after September and how things are gonna go, I'm gonna work full time. So I do not have as much time, but I always like I would like to come to events, if they're either online or offline, and stay involved definitely, but not like that much. But I think it would be also weird to like completely disappear now. So we'll see, and I think that's also something that kind of floats, and depending on also if I look at other rethinkers, some are still in contact with the others quite a lot. So we'll see how it goes. But definitely the intention to stay up to date.
Okay, sounds good. So let's do a little lightning round. So I'll ask some questions and just say the first thing that comes up. Okay?
Okay, cool.
Okay. So what is a skill any economist should learn?
Like how to explain it to a 4-year-old. Like wasn't it the Einstein quote? Like if you can't explain it to a 4-year-old, you don't understand it. But just like how to make it understandable for everyone.
Cool, I like that. Okay, who do you admire or look up to in economics?
Like definitely Kate Woolworth, because she has like similar educational like backgrounds, and I like just love her book. Yeah.
So what is a question you want me to ask that I haven't asked you yet?
Let me think. Yeah, something that comes into my mind, but that's just the phase I'm also in, like transitioning from like studying to working or whatever. Like how rethinking plays a role in that. Because I have basically no clue, so it's a question I definitely cannot answer. But so like rethinking being focused on economics education, but also in a way of like making economics more like democratic, and being in debate everyone feels comfortable to ask questions, like not to be an expert on, of course, but so what it kind of comes from is that me not having studied economics like hardcore, sometimes I feel a bit uncomfortable talking about economic issues or whatever, because I feel like I should first have a PhD in economics, which is also like more like personal insecurity maybe. But so that aspect I think follows maybe later on, like how the insights or the things you got at rethinking, how that can maybe contribute to your future, and how you can still be involved in it from another angle, like professionally. But I have no clue yet, so maybe you should ask like older rethinkers how maybe being part of rethinking impacted their after education life.
That's a good one. I'll remember that for next time. That's a good one. So did it change the way you think or the way you act, rethinking? Did it make you act any different or think any different about economics?
I think what it learned me, because was that there are like so many schools of thought, and like more like also history of economics. I think those main, because I also looked at economics to sometimes more like a political philosophy look, or like another outlook, and then you kind of look maybe at the traditional way it's being taught, but then you also maybe make the assumption that's how it's being taught, and there are like some developments, and there are like options and like schools who of thought who differ in that, and that's something I was not that aware of before joining Rethinking.
Okay, cool. So where do you see economics going? What does the future of economics look like according to you? Any thoughts?
Yeah, that's the thing what I said, like I don't have a PhD, so I'm not comfortable, but I don't know, maybe how I would want it, or like how
sounds
it would.
good.
Yeah, what something that interests me a lot is also like the more like putting like what determines price and value, and whether there's a way to make the economy more aligned to, instead of like how we value things, maybe whether it has some kind of intrinsic value, or whether we can basically put a price, like a true price on the products we buy and that's being sold, and that will be something which I think is great if we can achieve in some way. I don't know how, but and I know like that like organizations working on this, and also if I look, for example, at like different ways to measure GDP, or like to like not different ways to measure, but something else to for welfare, for example, I think those are developments which I think are very interesting and would be cool, because the like smart people like calculating these and have done quite some great work on that. So it would be great to see how that would evolve in the future, and how that impacts the economic system.
Cool. So final question. What is your advice to future economists?
To future economists, I think like look around. No, like see yourself as embedded in the surroundings you are, and first of all make sure like people understand like the message you have, and also be like self-aware of the limitations it has, and the assumptions you make, which I think will be great.
Cool.
And also the things you don't know, like be honest about the things you don't know. Yeah.
Oh, I like that one. That's a good one. So thank you so much for joining me today and for all your nice insights, and have a great day.
Yeah, you too.